What is going on, everyone? MikeO back with my September 2023 Philly Show recap. Philly Show is a great show. Look forward to it 3 times a year. They have it in the spring, fall, and winter. And it's just a great show to go wander around, hang out at. It's a show that's been great for decades, but I feel like it continues to improve as it's gotten a little bigger, but not too big. They moved it to Oaks, the Greater Philadelphia Convention Center, which is a bigger space than over at the Valley Forge Casino and Hotel. They were in the big hall this time, which was nice because it was a little more spread out. You could walk around. For the most part, you could see what you want to see. Of course, at times when it would be a little busier, it's hard to see in maybe a specific showcase, but it's just a good mix. There's a good mix of dealers. You have a little bit of something for everyone. You got a decent selection of pre-war, some really big cards there. You've got tons of vintage, plenty of modern. You got guys selling singles, selling slabs, selling wax, selling holders. A few of the grading companies were there, SGC, Beckett as well. JSA is always there. Tons of autograph signers. So it's a really good show, 3-day show. To really get the whole experience, probably 2 days. I can certainly always do 3. I was there the majority of Friday, and then for a good portion of Saturday. I had to leave early Saturday, but fun show as always. Just wandering around, seeing stuff, looking at stuff, catching up with tons of dealers that you get to know as the shows go by. So just, even whether it's a quick hello or a 5-10 minute conversation, sometimes you're able to pick up stuff from them, sometimes not. And of course, thank you to those who stopped me and said hello. Definitely appreciate that. Bunch of viewers at the Philly show that had some nice things to say, so appreciate that. Also ran into some fellow YouTubers as well. John, that 70s show, got to talk to him for a few minutes. Andrew Nuff Said Cards, ran into him a few times, but we didn't get to do our longer hangout, which we like to do at the trade night. I wasn't able to make that. Brian Roth, was able to meet up with him for a few minutes, picked up a few things from him, which I actually don't have in front of me. But also Sammy Thunder, ran into him briefly at Brian's table. And then Reese ND Card Ranger, ran into him both days. And we spent probably a couple hours hanging out, walking the show floor, looking at stuff on Saturday. So that was a ton of fun. That reminds me, I got more stuff here. I'm ready to do my recap, and half the stuff I picked up isn't even in front of me. Well, not half of it, but some stuff I got from Brian that's also not here. But we'll get into some of these pickups here. So, picked up a few cheaper cards. This is all I picked up on Friday, actually. Didn't really buy much Friday. I mean, I picked up some stuff to sell. A lot of new Ginter cards. Picked up some hits, autographs. Tougher inserts for the eBay store, but these were the PC cards. So just a few, and it's all cheap stuff. I got this stamp, Richie Allen. I get mixed up on the years and specific releases of some of these, so I got to look it up, but cool little Richie Allen there. Got the 1980 Kellogg's 3D Superstars, Larry Boa. I mean, the Kellogg's are awesome. For the most part, generally very affordable and just sweet cards. So happy to pick that one up. 1970 Richie Allen. I'm sure I have this, but I grouped it up, so can't turn that down. This is just kind of an oddball. This is in rough shape. Doesn't actually look that bad on camera, but there's huge indentations and stuff. But this is a 1986 True Value Superstars Collector Series. Mike Schmidt. I wish we had more of this type of stuff going on now. Of course, everything, goes through Fanatics at this point. And then this one to add to the oddball, the guys who kind of sort of stunk in the 90s collection. Ricky Otero, 1997 Fleer, Tiffany parallel, Ricky Otero. Love the fact that it's got the All-Star Game logo on the sleeve as well. That's something that's always neat when you have that image. There's not a ton of cards with that. And I was at that All-Star Game, so it was pretty cool. But that's the Tiffany parallel from 97 Fleer of Ricky Otero. So that's what Wesker Griff missed out on by not being able to make it to the show. Ed was missed, though. A lot of people asking about Ed. For those who watch the channel, specifically, I'm sure you know Ed is. He's Wesker Griff. He's been on YouTube for a long time. But a lot of times we'll wander the Philly show together. But he wasn't able to make it this time, so I hope to see him at the show again in December. All right, a couple other pickups. So these are larger card pickups, larger item pickups. This is a 1952 Baseball Magazine premium photo of Eddie Waitkus. See that? These are just pretty neat. Like picking these types of things up. This one's in kind of rough shape. It's got a lot of little surface bends, but that's fine. I mean, these are the type of things I just put in a big top loader, a big semi-rigid, and put in the collection. Just great images. So that was a cool addition. And then picked up this 1960s Freihofer's Wes Covington ad. And it is also signed by Wes Covington. So back the camera up. There's a full look of it. Look at it. About 8x10 or so. But just an awesome image. I mean, looks great. Super cool item. So when I'm able to pick up stuff like that, that is super fun. And Wes Covington was one of the players my dad really liked when he was a kid. So I'll be showing that to him at some point. And I'm sure he'll get a little kick out of it. All right, other pickups. So the rest of this stuff, the rest of these items are pre-war items, generally speaking, I believe so, yep, that I was able to pick up. Some of them from sets I didn't have, some of them just cool cards that a portion of these I bundled all together. A few I bought on their own, but let's take a look. The most expensive one was the 1886-1887 Old Judge and 172. This is Arthur Irwin in an SGC1. If I can get an Old Judge at a decent price, and I thought it was priced very fairly, and then able to get it down a little bit and then get some other stuff bundled down, I can't turn them down. Just awesome looking cards. And I mean, that one's got a pretty decent image on it. I mean, you see some that are incredibly faded. That is not one. So super cool pickup there. Arthur Irwin, he played for the Phillies from 1886 to 1889. And then he bounced back to them in 1894. He played 13 years in the big leagues. He was a shortstop. He's actually from Toronto. He was put in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, I want to say like 30, 40 years ago at this point. And he was also a manager for the Phillies from 1894 to 1895. So I like picking up stuff like that too, guys who were Phillies managers and players. You know, he wasn't a great player or anything, but then again, the Phillies, generally speaking, were not full of great players in the pre-war days. You know, they had a few good teams, and for the most part were pretty bad. But Arthur Irwin, interesting story. And if you care to learn more about Arthur Irwin, you can actually probably Google a story. He was one of those guys later in life. I think he was in his 60s, but he was sick and he kind of had a mysterious death. So interesting pickup there. Arthur Irwin for the collection. That I'm pretty certain is my first Arthur Irwin. So I like to add, on top of adding cards from different sets I don't have. I also like to add different players I don't have because every player's got a story, and that's why I've got some of this information here to share. So Fred Luterus, I definitely have cards of him already, but I'd never had one of these felts. This is a 1916 BF2 Ferguson Bakery felt. Fred Luterus. He was a first baseman for the Phillies. Pretty good player. He was on the 1915 pennant-winning team, so that was the first team that ever reached the postseason for the Phillies, and it was the first and last team for a long time until the Whiz Kids came around in 1950. But I mentioned some stuff about him before. He had the first home run in Phillies history in terms of the World Series, so postseason history. So I think that's an interesting footnote. Played in the big leagues for 12 years, 11 years with the Phillies from 1910 to 20, and of course that 1915 season being the highlight where they reached the World Series. So I think there's like 6 Phillies in this set, so happy to finally pick one of them up. We got a Bucky Walters, so this is trimmed. This is 1936 R314 Type 1. Which is what I thought it was, but I kind of wanted to get a second opinion, so I actually messaged Michael Shane. Bucky Walters pitched for the Phils. Buck Walter, as posted on here, from 1934 to 38. And he was not good with the Phillies. He was a pitcher, and he was 38 and 53 in his Phillies career with a 4.48 ERA, and then ended up in Cincinnati and had a ton of success. 1939 won 27 games. 1940 won over 20 games. Had an ERA in the 2s both years. 1940 in the World Series for Cincinnati, 2-0 with a 1.5 ERA. So it's one of those guys that the Phils let get away, and he found success in another spot. So this one's trimmed, but it was only a couple of bucks. It was priced at $5. I got it thrown into the deal, actually. Yeah, this was part of the one group I got, so the guy threw it in. So I was like, why not? Why not add it to the collection? Great image. I also like some of the old cards with like clear images of the hat or the jersey, because so many of the popular releases from back in the day are artist renditions. So that's a neat one. Here is a 1936 National Chickle Pastels R312 Dolph Camilli. He was a first baseman, better known for his days with Brooklyn, but was with the Phillies from 1934 to 37. Played 12 years from 33 to 45. 1941 NL MVP, All-Star in 39 and 41. But he was good with the Phillies. Like, he was from 34 to 37. He had his first year, I think he was decent, but his last 3 years, he had over 20 home runs all 3 years, where that wasn't as commonplace as, of course, it is today. Ton of RBIs. I think he had over 100 one year, hit over 300 twice. So he was a good player with the Phillies, and then went on to even more success and more popularity with the Dodgers. So that's just a great looking card. So happy to have that. And then the last few, we got a John Titus here. This is 1911 Helmar Stamps T332. John Titus played in the big leagues in outfield from 1903 to 1913, 10 years with the Phillies. He had a 30 WAR, if you're measuring by sabermetrics, so good player. John Titus, I believe, is the only guy with a mustache in the T206 set or one of those runs. Does not have one here. Smaller card, but as you can see, clean shaven. So that was a neat pickup, something I didn't have. And whenever I see cards I don't have from a specific set, that I always kind of try and work something out if I can, if it's within reason. Of course, there are some sets that are so tough. I mean, I did have a big miss at this show. I did run across very early in the show, like third table, within 5-10 minutes of being there, 1959 Bazooka, Richie Ashburn, which is a super tough card, and I hesitated. And, if it was later in the show, I probably would have tried to see if I could negotiate something. I think it was very fairly priced. So even $50 or $100 out, whatever. Probably would have jumped on it. Was not slabbed, so if it was slabbed, probably be even more likely to chase it. But I would have just dropped it right off at SGC. But I hesitated and literally looked in some value boxes and then saw it at another table 30 minutes later, and then a couple hours later went back to that table and it was gone from there. So that's a card where I think it's got 6 or 7 sales on VCP in the last 10 years. So it's not impossible, but it's not easy at all. All right, some other pickups. Here's a Sherry McGee, 1911, E94, close candy. Definitely beat up. Looks like it got run over by something at some point, but it's a cool card. Sherry McGee is one of those borderline Hall of Fame guys. He's been on the ballot. He's been on the Veterans Committee ballot, for years and years. I think he was on it again a few years ago. Came up short, but outfielder with the Phillies. Played from 1904 to 1919, but from 04 to 14 with the Phillies. So even though he was one of their better players for a number of years, he was out right before the year before they finally reached the postseason in 1915. So, yeah, he was a good player, and it's always cool to add some Sherry McGees to the collection. He was in 1914, that was probably his best year offensively with the Phillies. Had 15 home runs, over 100 RBIs, hit over 300, and he led the league in RBIs twice. So, Sherry McGee. And then we got a couple Nielsen chocolates here. And we got 2 versions. You get the Old English and without the Old English, and was able to pick a couple of them up. They're actually in pretty decent shape. We got Joe Goldie Rap, third base for the Phillies. He played only from 1921 to 23. Played a very short stint with the New York Giants and then also with the Phillies. So only a couple-year career, did not play long, was actually not very good. He had a negative 3.9 WAR compiled out of only 3 years. And his biggest claim to fame, the most interesting little factoid about him, is that he was actually traded from the Giants to the Phillies for Casey Stengel. So the Phillies traded Casey Stengel, who used to be a player with them if you weren't aware, for Goldie Rap. And now I have a Goldie Rap in the collection. And then the last pickup, also from the 1922 Nielsen Chocolates, is a Frank Parkinson. Frank Parkinson is a second baseman on this card with the Phillies. He was also played a good amount of shortstop. Another guy who did not have a tremendously long career, played from 1921 to 24. This is an awesome image. Like I said, love seeing the uniform in the image, and then you got the field there, and it's a photograph, so great looking card. 1922, his best offensive year. He had 15 home runs, 70 RBIs, hit 275, and he played really good defense, specifically at second base. He was among the league leaders in some of the key statistics for second baseman. So, this is a great looking card. So, guys don't have to be Hall of Famers, and they don't have to be the monstrous names to get enjoyment. There's always something to learn. And as much as I love collecting the guys who are playing now and following their careers and thinking about what is going to come of their career and how they're going to evolve and what other moments they're going to have, and I enjoy that aspect a ton. And I enjoy the aspect of collecting guys from the 90s and such, and guys who have that nostalgic feeling. And even the vintage guys, the guys you hear about and almost feel like you saw play, even though you didn't, those household names. Going into these pre-war guys and just learning, looking up, seeing their statistics, reading a little bit about their stories, finding some other images is it's just a whole new thing that brings a ton of enjoyment to this hobby, and it exercises your mind. Learning is important and it's good. So if you just always do what you're comfortable with and what you know, you're not going to expand your horizons as much. So I'm someone who preaches collecting everything, at least a little bit of everything. Obviously, you want to have focus on specific things, but at least getting little examples, I think, is a ton of fun. And damn, this card is awesome. So I was thrilled with the Philly show. It was a good time. Like I said, got to catch up with a lot of people from different aspects of the hobby. Guys over at SGC I talked with a ton. The guys some of the vintage dealers, some of the new dealers, and fellow YouTubers and people who just randomly stop me and getting to see all this stuff. And hey, at one point, I didn't think I was going to pick up much of anything, and then at the end, I got a nice little selection of stuff and didn't have to completely break the bank to do so either. So the Philly show, once again, a complete success. Had a great time. Appreciate you guys watching. Comment below. Let me know what you think of the pickups from this Philly show. If you were someone that said hello, make sure you post so in the comments so I can say hello right back to you in the comments. Thank you guys as always, and I will talk to you next time. Have a great one.